So when you open up the box, this is what you're going to see that it gives you. You have your little control unit here and then your two harnesses. And if you actually go to the manual that it comes with, it does designate Fusion 2006-2012. Where we saw in the box that it does not have Fusion listed, but it does list the Mercury Milan, which is basically the same car. Alright guys, I have finished wiring up the adapter harness. And basically, I like to wrap it in electric tape after I get done connecting all the butt connectors and then zip tie over them so that way the electric tape can't unravel, so you don't have to worry about creating shorts later on. This is a really simple process. Just take your booklet from whatever head unit you purchased and it will lay out what color corresponds to what function. And then you will have your booklet from your adapter and you just make sure that those functions are the same. For mine, everything was identical. It seems like this is pretty standardized where all the colors should be the same. Another thing to keep in mind when you're preparing your radio to install is stuff like this. So this is for a subwoofer, remote on cable. If you are going to run a subwoofer, go ahead and attach this, so that way you're not having to do it while it's in the car. And then a lot of radios that display video will have this, which goes out to your parking brake. And once you have that hooked up, basically it'll allow you to play video or play like the built-in games on the head unit. But if you don't hook this up, a lot of the functions on your radio will not work. So if your radio does have the parking brake wire, make sure you go ahead and extend that so you can run it to the parking brake. And as far as the steering wheel controls are concerned, it will just tell you whatever brand head unit you have to cut certain loops. So since I have a JVC, I cut the purple and green one. And we'll see if that works. I hope it does. If not, it shouldn't be too hard to reconnect those wires and cut different ones. Alright, and here is the dash kit that we're going to be using to install the radio in the Fusion. There's the part number for anyone interested. Now, it will not specify that it fits Ford Fusion. It just says select 2004 and up Ford and Mercury vehicles. But this will actually work. I've looked at the mounts inside the car and on this radio, and it'll be just fine. All you have to do is take these pieces, line them up with there, like this, and then you'll clip it in. And that's how you get it mounted on the side there. Then you'll take these and just mount them to your radio wherever you have holes. And here's what it looks like when it's completely mounted to the radio. Just make sure you put in the screws on these side pieces here and then kind of force the radio forward so that way it gets as flush as possible before tightening them down. Also, make sure these pins are down at the bottom because I did look in the car and these will have to go in at the bottom for this to mount correctly. As we've already discussed, if you have any extra wires to run or a microphone or anything for your head unit, make sure you run that first. RCAs if you have a sub, power on wire, etc. But other than that, after you've got it wired up and the dash kit mounted on it, you're good to install. So let's go ahead and put this in the car. Alright, I did remove the radio off camera, but you will not need a guide to do this. It is very simple. For the plastic trim piece that you're going to run into first, basically go to the bottom of it down here, and you're going to pop these tabs out first. Really easy. Just use a trim removal tool. That's all I did. Didn't even take much pressure to get it popped off. Afterwards, you'll have these three plugs that will correspond to the buttons on your trim piece. Just unplug those so you can remove this and set it off to the side. Next, you'll have your radio screws. It'll have 4 7mm screws. I still have these here. And these will be in here. After removing those, you just have your 2 radio harnesses and an antenna wire. I've already ran some RCAs, that's what these extra cables are, and my microphone cord. But getting all those unplugged, the radio antenna cord is a little bit difficult. Just make sure you're pushing it in from the back and out. It's got like a push pin style design, and it should remove pretty easily. Alright guys, I got the head unit reinstalled now. As you can see, everything is plugged up in there. I removed this top piece because I was going to run my USB through it, but then I figured out that the vents kind of prevent it from sitting flush. So I just went ahead and ran my USB cable down here. And I'm going to put the trim piece back on and I'll show you guys the finished product. Alright guys, I've finished installing the radio and everything is fully functional on the radio. And the steering wheel controls do work. I can increase volume, decrease volume, I can skip songs, change the source, and I can answer calls. I have tested that. It doesn't work to hang up calls though. I mounted the microphone over here on top of the gauge cluster and routed the wire under the steering wheel, so that way only part of wire exposed is this little bit right here as it's coming out. For the USB cable, I mounted it down here in the footwell and just tucked it under these panels here, so it's only exposed right here. And that is how you install an aftermarket head unit in a 2006 to 2012 Ford Fusion.